Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Jahan from Boundless Authenticity. I've switched podcast hosting from Spreaker to Podbean, and all episodes are now available for streaming at boundlessauthenticity.podbean.com. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Boundless Authenticity Podcast. Today I feel frustrated on a level that is hard to put into words. This is the third time in 4 years that I have been hit with something like this. And once again, I am starting over on a new hosting platform because Spreaker decided to demonetize me and claim that I was using bot. And I want you to know what actually happened. From the very beginning, this show has been suppressed and targeted because of the nature of the conversations that we have here. And that is just a fact. My journey as a podcaster has been hell on every platform that I've tried. In the early days, Boundless Authenticity Podcast was removed completely from the internet, and I had to rebuild from nothing by dropping the word podcast from the name. Somehow, through what I guess was pure luck, I was later, the best way to put it is I was able to merge the Boundless Authenticity Podcast with what is now Boundless Authenticity. So I got that back into the one show that you listen to today. But since July, what I've been doing is I have been focused on search engine optimization and bringing on powerful guests with loyal audiences. And they're excited to share our conversations to their list of, some of these people have up to 70,000, 80,000 followers. So the result from that was real growth. And I went from an average of between 2,000 to 4,000 listeners to 70,000 in a short time. I think that sudden growth was enough to trigger the algorithms. And now here we are. This issue is way bigger than me. This feels like it's a direct hit on freedom of speech. It is a hit on you, the people who support this show, because it sends a message that certain truths are not meant for the public. Ask yourself how a show like this violates any so-called rules while the internet is full of things that platforms frankly struggle to remove or simply allow to exist, meaning they won't remove it. I'm talking about non-consensual intimate images, deep fake nudes of real people, violent extremist content, child exploitation and pornography, fraud, bullying, impersonation scams, coordinated harassment, animal abuse, copyright violations. All of that stuff is out there, and yet somehow our community is the problem. Well, I deserve to be heard. My guests deserve to be heard. You deserve meaningful content made with care. I deserve fair compensation for the hours of recording, editing, promoting, researching, and finding guests. They believe that they can treat this community however they want, but the truth is that we are not going anywhere. The gloves are off now. And again, I thank you, the supporters, because without you, what would be the point? Today, we have a return guest, Olivia James, and honestly, I forgot how super chill she was because from the time I said hello, I was like, oh yeah, that's one of the many reasons that I have her on here. But Olivia was born into the programs by a family of drug traffickers. She was trauma trained in programs like MKUltra, where her mind was split to create alters used for missions on Earth and in space. She was used for espionage, occult, beta, and corporate programs. Olivia's main focus is finding her memories, using them to heal her alters, and hoping that her memories can assist others. Olivia has a book series called Grey Mouse. One of them is Sex, Space, and Mind Control. The other is Purgatory. Those are available on Amazon. You can also find Olivia James, the Grey Mouse, on Substack. And all of those links are available in the show notes. So Olivia, how's it going?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you back here with me. You are quite insightful and really you provide what I would consider to be some very compelling and authentic evidence for the existence of MKUltra, but not only that, the extent to which these sickos go. to achieve their agenda.
Yes. Literally would do anything to maintain their power, control, and their agenda for conquest in this world and others.
I've been addressing the issue of so many fakes, and I call it fakery and fuckery on the internet,
Yes.
where this subject is concerned. I have had to address one with the guy that's basically comparing himself to the TV show Stranger Things, same story. And I have spoken to many people who agree with me that he's a faker and a fucker. You know, fakery and fuckery is just so deep. But what I will reassure the audience is that everyone has great things to say about Olivia James.
Some do. Some do.
What's that?
I said some do.
Well, when I say everybody, I mean the people that matter.
Okay.
You know, one thing that I have found to be true is that when you're a creative person, you tend to hold on to your criticisms unless it's factual. You will never, ever chastise or criticize someone else that is another creator unless they're honestly full of shit and they have bad intentions.
Right.
A lot of that in the podcasting community, that they're purposely trying to do the work of the overlords on an unconscious level, or they're just bad people. And
yeah, and it's you really can really have a very varied experience, because I've been on a lot of podcasts and just in meeting different people, it's been so interesting, the different personalities that you can see, you know, within podcasting.
Absolutely. It's like, imagine everybody in like 1991 that would have been inside their basements just jerking off or something, or screaming at the wall, you know, like throwing PCs at the wall and watching it run down the wall. Podcast, you know.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that though, your introduction, it really spoke to me and rang true to what the information that I've been trying to get out to people about the agendas, you know. And I'm sorry, should I start, or do you want me to hold on?
Say what you were saying about...
Okay. I was just going to say it really rang true about some of the information I've been trying to get out about Project Oblivion. And it's been a couple years now because I think I originally got this information in around, 2022, 2023. And it's from my second book. I have part of Project Oblivion is in there. So I have been trying to tell people about it and get the word out. And when I first got the information, the handlers that spoke to me told me that they were working on getting the green light for that project. And then later on, I found out that they had solidified the project, and the project would be moving forward to be implemented within our community.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, what I will add there before you begin is that I'm never going to stop. I'm a very difficult person to stop. I have the resilience of a cockroach in a nuclear holocaust. And no one has ever been able to deter me throughout my life from doing anything that I wanted to do. And nobody has ever been able to get me to do anything that I didn't want to do. And that's a very dangerous personality type to these kinds of people, because I will die and I will come back and I will haunt them, or I will start over again. I will find a way to remember in the next life and just start all over again. So.
And definitely they think the information and what we're doing is dangerous to them and their power. And that's exactly why they're targeting.
Having said that, tell us about Project Oblivion.
Sure. So a little background is after I was trained in MKUltra and I want to say about 6 to 7, it might have been 6 years ago now, I started to have, like around 2018, I really started to have a real awakening to what I had gone through and, you know, all the things that happened to me. And I actually had some kind of resurgence of my own psychic abilities that had been suppressed pretty much most of my life. Not in the way that I didn't have paranormal things happen, but the way that how far I could go and what I could do with it. I had no idea that I could take it this far. And actually, I work really closely with Misha Johnston, and we've done a lot of work with me learning how to rediscover how to do some really deep remote viewing and something I'll call spirit hosting. And that's how I get a lot of information, is that I'm able to tap into a person, and there's so many different pieces of a person to tap into. There is not just the mind, and the body and the spirit. There's so many different things you can connect to, like a different personality, an alter, a past life, a future life. Some of their, I don't know how to say it, not just like a personality, but sometimes I call it connecting to somebody's brain. There's just so many pieces to connect to because I don't know how else to describe it. So I'm able to allow something to use my body to kind of, step through. And it's not always to where, and it's not really channeling. There's a kind of like a big difference for me in what I'm doing from channeling, because I'm not just, sitting up and waiting for people to talk to me, which I can do that. But what I do is, it's mainly, to me, it's way deeper. And it's a mixture of like astral travel, bilocation, the spirit hosting, the remote viewing, and then some remote influencing in order to get this information for the world. So that's how I came to get the information, is in doing sessions, practicing this. And I allowed myself to connect to the handler division. And let me tell you, the handlers, they're not afraid of me seeing what they're doing, of speaking to me, of telling me what they're doing. They have no fear of it, because from what they say and from what their idea of who we are is, they consider us to be very weak and very fragmented, weak community. And it's almost like when I let them speak through me, and whoever's witnessing it is almost like in like kind of like a fighting match with them and arguing, we've had that happen quite a bit where, they automatically, when they start speaking through me, the handler will go to attack the person and, humiliate them and, kind of try to degrade them and belittle them. And that's their kind of like efforts to stop you from even asking questions, which it doesn't. But it's really interesting to see how the handlers have no care in the world. And they go on these long rants about, you'll never be able to, do anything. We're going to make sure that you're stopped. You'll never be able to continue this. And I know a lot of the things they say is that we'll never be able to stop them, because one of the things they say is that they have so much money that it doesn't matter what we do, because they have so much money and power behind them. They see us as kind of like pests, in the fact that we're trying to wake up and trying to wake others up and trying to give the world information. They almost think it's funny that we're even attempting this. So from what I learned, and to me, it was one of the most important things that I was able to get, is the information on Project Oblivion. And I remember when it happened and we were discussing it, and I was under this very deep trance. And I remember, Misha was trying to help me get to that point, and I couldn't find it. And it came to me, and I saw it really plain and huge in my head. It was the words Oblivion. Oblivion. It kept flashing. And that's when I started to get the information and what they tried to say. And they told me that at that time that this project has to be implemented, because they found out that what we're doing is very important. What we're doing is making a difference. What we're doing just by using our words, just by speaking to each other, just by speaking on podcasts, is making a huge difference, whether we see it or not right now. It's almost like a legacy. So you wake up one person, that's one more person that has discovered that all of this is real. So to them, they said that we're doing something dangerous. We're risking a lot, yes, but we're also making a huge impact, on many people and lots of the world, just by talking about what happened to us. And so they want us to stop. And the only way to stop is to implement this program, which is set to, they said, to completely destroy us. They said they're going to make our lives a living hell. They pretty much said, we're going to blow up your lives. Anything you care about, anything that's important to you, everything is going to be gone for you. They're going to be targeting with illness. They're going to be targeting with financials, relationships. And I know one of the major themes, well, to me, it's one of the most important. I actually dedicated my second book to anybody that's ever betrayed me, because I feel like it was very important. And the theme of Oblivion is betrayal, because the theme of betrayal is so destructive and it really weighs heavy on the heart. So I dedicated my second book to anybody that I felt betrayed me, because it really teaches me a lot. And even now, if I even get betrayed now, I feel like it does teach me. It does something to me where I can see the importance to continue and move forward, no matter if I'm betrayed within the community or just in a personal situation. It's almost been life-changing for me to experience betrayal, because I experienced it from the beginning with my own father and how he handed me over to MKUltra to save himself. So this theme has been so important. And they chose that for Oblivion because they know the impact. And from what I saw, when I was remote viewing this, I was able to see this huge list, and I was able to see a few of the names on there. And some of the people, I knew the names, and there was a lot I've never heard of. So there's a lot of people on this huge list that they have that are going to be targeted because we either know something, we've experienced something, or maybe you are close to waking up. There's so many reasons why somebody would be on the list. And from what they told me, the major target, I know this sounds weird, but because it might not be experiencers that are the major target, they said the major target is podcasters. And for the reason that actually podcasters are the ones who've given us this platform in order to give our stories to the world. And that's how podcasters kind of have gotten intertwined in this and are going to be targeted for Project Oblivion because of their efforts to bring information to the world. And, I've seen it. I've seen podcasters be targeted. I've gone on shows and they've told me, we just got our, something happened to our channel. They're trying to, get strikes against our channel. Our channel's getting taken down. And like you said, it would be over something that is just completely ridiculous, while there's other channels having highly inappropriate things out there and they're not touched at all. And they maintain their space. They maintain their channel. It's just so, to me, so overwhelmingly obvious. It's almost too obvious, I think, sometimes. And that's why it's kind of hard for us to look at it and be like, I think this is targeting, or is it just, normal? Is it about money? And for me, from what I know, if it's connected to the community, it's Project Oblivion. And it's work to me, from what I've seen recently, it's working. And we're in a really rough spot, in my opinion, our community is. I know a lot of us are fighting back and trying to maintain, but they've gotten really, in my opinion, they've kind of gotten upper hand right now and are really tearing a lot of people in the community down with various ways. And there's so much, because there's so much emotion into what's going on in different communities, and a lot of, there's a lot of triggering, there's a lot of emotions, there's high emotion in the community. There's so many different ways for us to be impacted by this. And I'm seeing it a lot, and it's very frustrating, because we're constantly telling people Oblivion, Oblivion, Oblivion. And it's almost like it's falling on deaf ears in a way, and there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of, a need for something that, not all of us can fill for other people. Sometimes it's an internal need and you don't realize it, So Project Oblivion is taking advantage of all that. It's taking advantage of every emotion you have, everything you see, everything you're triggered by. It's huge. It was, even if you have like issues with ego and you really need that validation, Oblivion will find it. Oblivion will figure out how to use that against you. So we all have to be mindful. And for myself, I have to be mindful for things that trigger me, because there's I'm a human too. So a lot of things, injustice triggers me, but maybe it doesn't trigger somebody else. And I still have to be able to wish them the best if that doesn't trigger them, so it's so difficult to see it actually winning sometimes. And I feel like we're kind of in a rough spot in terms of Oblivion. I'm not sure. Have you seen some things? Have you noticed things yourself?
I've seen a lot of things. I mean, what specifically do you mean?
I don't know. I guess just, have you felt targeted yourself as a podcaster for allowing, us to come here and give information?
The thing about that is, truthfully, I've been targeted for so long that it doesn't even make a difference. They're just going to target me no matter what I do. And I have not really, because of that, been able to notice whether or not you guys being on has made a difference in my level of targeting or not.
It's just, and do you know the reason for that? Is there something about your past that has already put you on that list?
In short, I was in the music industry for most of my life. I started when I was very young. And I was never the kind of person to bend over for anyone to have investment into any of my projects. As I found different integral ways to navigate and get to higher levels and hobnob with certain people and meet certain people, get connections and things like that, I would always hit these walls where they would be like, you got to do this, you know, go to this party or sleep with this person. And I would be like, no, I'm not doing that. Or they would bring contracts. They would bring artists and repertoire agents that were basically handlers that would want to sleep with me. When they realized that I wasn't going to do the gay thing, they started sending women because obviously, as you know, they're the best profilers. And so they know what you like. So they started sending women my way. I would say no. I wouldn't sign contracts, all these different things. And I became very aware of what was going on because I had a lawyer that worked with high profile artists that warned me. He literally turned the laptop around on his desk and was like, watch this video. This is going to explain to you exactly what goes on in the music industry, and this is not for you. So within my family, I have connections to people who are in Hollywood, one of them being Benedict Cumberbatch, who is a long lost cousin. I forget what he's in. Is it Doctor Strange or something like that? But he doesn't really acknowledge this side of the family. And that links all the way back to his side of the family, links all the way back to a slave owner with the last name Cumberbatch. And when you're dealing with that kind of thing, you're dealing with the plantocracy, you're dealing with the original elites that came to settle on Barbados and create sugar plantations, et cetera, set up the slavery. You're talking about 1600s onward, right? My grandfather was invited to join the Freemasons, and he went to one meeting and he was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's bullshit. And from then, I think he was targeted. His business was targeted. He was in real estate and stuff like that. His business started to suffer after that. And so, you know, I have all these different reasons why they don't like me. I started getting banned in 2015 because I did a really good meditation and I posted in Instagram that I'm pretty sure that I saw there was a grid above the earth where they have each area for each country divided, and they're going to probably start doing interstellar wars or something up there, you know? Like,
you just reminded me of something.
Okay.
This is a few years ago when I did a session, and, you know, I'm not religious, so I don't have a lot of fears of like entities speaking through me or something. And I remember I remote viewed an actual, like, it looks like a government project, and they had the country or the world kind of broke it up into these different sectors, and they were monitoring like almost like portal activity from interdimensionals that more like dark side. And they called the Midwest Sector B. And that was one of the highest levels that was lit up from what I could see of that kind of like paranormal activity with things being able to come through there. I just thought that was interesting. You reminded me of that when you were talking about the grid.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So, well, to wrap up the answer to your question, yeah, those are some of the reasons why. Because all I said was like, wow, that's really weird, and posted it on Instagram, and next thing I know, I got flagged, and that was the end of that. And ever since then, any project that I've had, even when my podcast got hit in 2021 and the first 6 episodes were taken down, then they attacked my music Instagram page too and started removing followers and stuff like that. I had over 5,000 followers. So they don't want me to have any kind of traction on anything whatsoever.
They don't want you to have life. They don't want you to have anything positive. They don't want you to be happy. They want to deter you from everything. You know, you must somehow have made this a huge impact in the community somehow, or else they wouldn't be targeting you, you know. Well, they want to target everyone. I was going to say that when you were talking about how they sent females your way like honeypots, it really brought ideas to my head, not ideas, but memories, because I think that the world doesn't really know what women are capable of, good and bad. And I say that because being in the programs, they trained many of us to be what somebody would consider a honeypot. And we didn't call that we didn't call it that. We called it my faction called it beta tracking. And it was somebody that would be given a mark. So they would assign me to someone, and I would have to infiltrate that person's life somehow. And I would have to make myself be everything they could ever want in a person. I'd have to know exactly, and you have to use your profiling abilities to know exactly what that person would want. You'd have to read them constantly. And it wasn't always for a particular, I don't want to say like a bad thing, because we called whatever we were assigned to do at the end of this so-called relationship, we called it an outcome. We never gave the word. If they said you had to do something really bad, they called it an outcome. So it wasn't always about that ending. A lot of it was intel gathering, and they would use that for blackmail. So it was a possibility that they were sending people to you for that reason, in order to gather information and blackmail. Because once you are comfortable around someone, you'd be able to say whatever you want. And that's how we get a lot of information, is because our alters are constantly recording. So we wouldn't have to write anything down. We didn't have to use phones or anything to record. The mind records. And the people that are in charge, the factions, all they would have to do in order to debrief and obtain that information is put you under a slight trance with codes or frequencies and obtain the information. It's hidden way back in your mind under lock and key. So if you were caught and interrogated or something, you would never be able to give that information. It's not possible to give it. So it's under very much lock and key. So it's a good way for them to keep the information safe, whatever information we gathered. So, and we also used to call that Black Widow programming. But from what I know, I called it beta tracking. So I just think that's interesting that you mentioned that. And I used to do that for an agency called Kruger. And it's not a good agency, in my opinion. I know some people say they have a good experience with them, and maybe everyone's different. I don't know. But from what I remember, and I know this from personal experience, they allow their assets to be physically and sexually harmed by their colleagues, and with no consequence. So anytime I hear the name or even speak it, I just get this twinge of anger every time that I think about it. It's just, they need to have some type of consequence at some point for their behaviors. So I thought that was interesting that you said that they had sent somebody to you.
Well, wait, there's more. This kind of targeting started when I was much younger as well. When I was about 17, going on 18, my first girlfriend was someone who was either consciously or unconsciously a handler. Her godfather was Mick Jagger, none other than. And she got transferred from another school. She sat behind me in class. And from the very first day of school, I would feel like there were eyes in the back of my head. And she kind of just like stalked me from the surrounding areas. Weeks passed, and there would be a smile here, a flirt there. And I just really wasn't interested in that kind of stuff. I just wanted to live my life and do what I was doing. I was obsessed with music, obsessed with my guitar. I'd bring it to school with me. That's what I do at lunch. I wouldn't talk to anyone. When she found ways to weasel her way into my life, she would start telling all the other kids that she had a crush on me and all these different things. And they would come back and tell me, and she would get them to come in and tell me and, try to convince them to ask me out and stuff like that. She did it from a distance. She never made any contact. So eventually I walked up to her and I was like, what is your problem? Like, why don't you just talk to me? If you want something, just talk to me. And from then we just started shacking up, and I found out all the other stuff about her connection to Mick Jagger, and got to know some of her family. And a lot of it was really strange stuff. It was just really weird sex stuff. And she had a connection to the occult that I was unaware of until I broke up with her. She was in some kind of a coven, apparently. And I've had plenty of experiences with her where she just seemed to be hysterical and afraid that something was trying to get her. And also, I'll just be explicit, we were having sex one time in her bedroom, and I watched her transform into some kind of being while we were actually doing it. And it was like glitching and flickering, like it was a glitch in the Matrix. Like all it needed.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. All it needed was like television static to make it even creepier. And I remember I was stopped and I tried to get away from her, and whatever it was had me like locked in to its gaze and held down. And I eventually pulled away from it. And it was like she had no idea what was actually going on. This was all happening unknown to her, it seemed, although I don't buy that story. And moving on from that, people that she knows, guys that she knows, who were other musicians whose parents were very rich and influential and basically in top corporations locally, and parts of what they did, they were involved in secret societies and stuff around here, the lodges and Rotary Club and all those different things. They're all parts of that. They actually held me down one night. This is when I was 19 years old. Held me down, like got behind me, stood behind me. And one guy took a guitar pick that he had loaded up with a huge bump of cocaine and shoved it up into my nose. And there was no way that I could get away from it. So even when I was gasping to get away and stuff, I got some of it in there. And that was the very first time I got high on coke. And that had me hooked on it for a long time. So they did that on purpose, is what I'm saying. And after that, like that pretty much ruined my life for a long time. Made me persona non grata, if you want to say that, among a lot of people, because they're like, oh, don't go around him. He's a drug user, et cetera, et cetera. And they themselves would walk around the length and breadth of this country, spreading rumors about me, saying all kinds of things that weren't true. There was even a guy, one of them was following me to everywhere that I went, unknown to me, going in after I would leave and stealing things. And then he would start a rumor saying that it was me that was stealing stuff.
Trying to gaslight you.
Yeah.
Make you seem like you were crazy.
And and then in the end, somebody actually caught him doing it. And they found out that it was, I don't know exactly what happened, because this is just what I was told, but they all figured out that it was him that was doing it. It didn't exonerate me or anything. I was still ousted from the tribe. So they did everything they could to force me out and set me up and make me to be just absolute crap. I don't know. And I went through a lot of stuff. So I am only now recently talking about this kind of stuff in the recent episodes on the show, because a lot of it's been with MKUltra people or people who've been handled and stuff.
It just makes a lot of sense, because when I was in the programs, I don't know if I think I've talked about this before. I was in a project called Project Traveler, and it was for something, and I was really young. I want to say 19 to like 22, maybe, doing things like this, which we're forced to. We don't have a choice in it when you're under mind control and used in the programs. But I was used to do something called spirit hosting for what people would consider elites. So people would they literally would pay for this, for me to do this. So I would go under, kind of similar to what you described, like transforming. I would go under trance for these people at their house. And what they wanted me to do was bring their God into this world. And it would be simple as them wanting to have dinner with them. I've done it. And I would just let this thing take over my body. And some people wanted to have relations like that, because it's almost like having relations with what they consider divinity. They consider their God, a familiar spirit. I call them daemons. So that's kind of what they wanted to do. And you're talking about her kind of like transforming. That kind of sounds similar to what I used to do, allowing something to take over your body. And then while you were having relations, you're actually having relations with something demonic or another type of being. And sometimes the elites thought that could, they in their minds thought that they could create moon children like that, or children of the moon, which would mean that whatever child was born from I don't know, kind of like a sexual encounter, if a child was born from that, if the person had the being inside them, they consider any child born would be like demonic bloodline. So, I mean, it's super creepy, but that's kind of some of the things that were going on in some of these occult spaces, and people that you wouldn't think that would be doing that kind of thing. And to me, still, like, it still doesn't scare me in a way. I think, they kind of created this kind of like idea about what the power of the demonic side has. And for me, I don't experience it like that, because I've been able to see so much of it. I don't have a lot of fear of them. And from what I've seen, it's like a lot of humans that are doing the dirty work. And they say, we're doing it in the name of this demon. But did the demon do it? It was the human doing it. So it's really strange, and it's really conflicting for me to see them, kind kind of still doing these kinds of things, because when I talk to some of these darker energies, they almost kind of laugh at it. They almost think it's funny, because they say they have nothing to do with the success of these people, with their riches, nothing. They said, one of them just said, I don't even know why they keep doing this. Like, I don't help them in any way. I just come here for the, the validation and the worship and the praise. He said, I don't have anything to do with what they have. They think I do. He said, but I don't do anything. I just come here to get my worship and then I go back. So it's so strange to be able to have this experience that other people can't see, and to see some of these things. And it's changed my entire worldview and my whole life of, because I grew up, I grew up in the church. A lot of people did. So it's completely opposite from what I used to believe. And because I've seen it with my own eyes, I've experienced it, and it's way different than how I've been taught to think during my childhood.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I don't enjoy talking about this kind of stuff at all. I've always known that it's been something very shady and dark in my life. And I've just used it as a platform to grow. And I flipped it on its head and done all the things that I've done in terms of becoming a mental health practitioner, etc. And I think that scares them too. Like, they never thought I would ever break free from drugs and alcohol and do anything with my life. They never thought I would reach any levels of success and get into the rooms that I've been in with particular people. And that scares them,
It's going to scare the world that a lot of us are doing that people would not expect to have a voice in the community or just in the world at large. It's going to be fearful for a lot of people for people to come in that are unexpected, and even for myself. I don't consider myself anybody in special in particular, but I can do this. I have things that I can do that other people can't do. And I want to be able to use that to help in some way, and I've had, I keep having all these, strange what people would consider like paranormal experiences, or be able to get information that just no one is, kind of like, I want to say, brave enough to go into there. I'd rather take the risk for people. And I am taking a risk because, and even by talking about it, because I know, once I talk about stuff like that, people are going to look at me a certain way, and I don't want to, jeopardize the information, the information I have about MKUltra or about Project Oblivion. I wouldn't want to do that. But at the same time, I have to be authentic and stay true to my own experience. And it's true that I have had, very, significant paranormal experiences and what I've seen and things like that. So that's kind of like why I write about it. And I don't do it to, make people afraid of me or the things I can do. I do it because to me, it's important information, and that not many other people are going to be able to get. And no one else is going to want to go, travel to the dark side and get this information. So I might be one of the only people that, is able to do that.
Well, I would agree with that notion. And I think that people like myself serve in many different ways, but one of them is that I'm not afraid to put myself out there, and I'm not afraid to be authentic, whereas being authentic seems to scare the shit out of the average person.
It does.
And when it comes to acquiring a certain level of insight, spiritual wisdom, whatever you want to call it, most people are only willing to go so far when it comes to implementing it and actually taking action, being consistent with it every single day, because people just want to have fun. It's not necessarily an indictment on them. But what about walking the straight and narrow path and being completely sober and not watching TV and not listening to music and all those different things? What about that's fun? You actually step away from the constructed reality, and people don't want to do that at any cost. And so there's also the aspect of free will. Everybody thinks free will just automatically exists, but free will kind of comes after you acquire wisdom and you put it into action, and then you see how that works for you. You don't know what choices you have. It's like a menu, right? If you don't have the menu and you go to a Burger King and you ask for macaroni and cheese, are you going to get that?
Yeah, it's just, isn't it? I don't know. It's like, I feel like, I'm trying, sometimes I have to really rein myself in and speak a certain way, in order to satisfy, the world and what image they would want to see from me, in order just to give people information. I have to shift and transform myself a bit, for other people. And sometimes when I talk about the paranormal and, things I've experienced, I want to be able to talk about that like as my real self, because I didn't have my real self for so many years. I was so mind controlled and I had so many shifting alters that I didn't even know who I was. And now that I was able to put my alters to sleep and become my original self, I find it difficult to kind of like, train myself to not give out certain aspects of information that I feel like people will judge me for or be afraid of, especially like paranormal. I could probably look through any of my books and, pretty much every few pages, there'd be something on there that might make someone else afraid of what I'm saying, afraid of what I'm doing, afraid of just who I could possibly be or what I've done or what what I might say in the future or what I might find with remote viewing. And, it's, and it can become difficult. And I have to battle that. Like, am I going to stay brave and just be authentic to myself? Or am I going to like hold that all back for everyone else in order to make them feel safe,
I get what you're saying. And, I kind of wish that things weren't set up that way. One of the things that caught my attention that you said a few days ago was you were talking about Project Oblivion and how the targets have been recognized. And
yes,
you were saying that the purpose is to stop us from talking and to slow down
yes,
how we can present information or what information we can present to the world. And I felt that one deeply because that's how it's been for me for a long time. I'll say certain things and they would slap me, shadow ban me, block me, delete me, flag it, whatever the case is. And
yes,
then a few months later, you would see some other asshole that has like 10,000 views on his post saying the same thing. And it'd be like, how come he can say it, but not me?
exactly. That exactly happens. Like, I got banned off TikTok and I had like 6,000 followers. I was going upwards and upwards, getting all the information out. I was making videos of, I take all these little pieces of my books and I put them in video form for people that, aren't necessarily don't want to read or whatever. I wanted to make sure everybody could access it, and especially on a free platform. And as soon as I started making videos about Project Oblivion, just one day I woke up and the channel was completely gone. They said banned. So I was like, that's Project Oblivion. Kind of got me right there. And so I wasn't able to get that channel back. I lost everything on that one. I tried to rebuild it, but now the rules are even more stringent and they watch me even more like a hawk. So I haven't really done anything much with that. And then yesterday I got banned on Twitter because I was talking about, I made a post about Project Oblivion. I should have known better. I should have known it was kind of like, I've seen recently a lot of things happening in the community and I should have known that I probably should have, kind of reined it back a little bit. Hopefully I can get that account back. But if I don't, I guess no big deal. I'll have to figure something else out. I've been trying to maybe focus more on the writing, but I think if they have it their way, eventually that probably will get taken from me too. So I'm trying to get everything out as much as I can right now. That way people have the information already. And I feel like I did what I was supposed to do because I was told to do this. I was told to take this information back and tell people about this I don't know if I told you about this, the project with the Olympia group. And that's how I kind of got a little bit of information. So this Olympia group is something, and I really don't talk about time travel or anything like that. That's not really been in my, like direct experience, but I did have an experience where I was taken, and how I was taken or how it happened, it's really unexplainable. But I know I was there and I know it was real. And I went to a base. It was almost like a military base about 12 years in the future. And the general there at the base who I met with, the base name, he said, I can't know that yet. And his name isn't even to be known yet. And that's what he told me. And he told me a lot about that in about 12 to 15 years in the future, there's a coming revolution and their rebellion is very small, very small. And he said that we're in a very, very bad position in the future. And he said that I needed to come back and tell people about this and about Oblivion. And Oblivion is still in that time frame, 12 to 15 years in the future. It was still there. He even told me, he said, Oblivion still reigns here. And that he said, our mission, he said, I have to go back and tell people our mission. And when he said he meant the community. He meant the disclosure community. He said, go back. He said, The mission is to build the network, maintain the network, and protect the Olympia group. The Olympia group are a group of children that have volunteered to come here during this time. They're about 12 to 19 years old right now. And that was a few years ago, so they may be a little bit older now. But these children, they came and volunteered to be here for the revolution. So they're hackers. So they're the computer kids, the kids that everybody's telling them to get off the computers and stuff. These are the computer kids. And the general, when I was having the experience, he tried to show me a few pictures of some of the kids that were being targeted. And it kind of resonated to me the way you're speaking to, because one of the pictures was of a young girl. She was about 16. And the vision that I had is that the targeters, the handlers, they're going to try to throw her off track by making her into a drug addict. So she can't help. So she can't be one of the Olympia group. They're going to they know who these children are, and they're going to be starting to target them as well already at a young age, because these are the kids they said are going to turn the tides of the war more toward our side, to where we can have more freedom back. But I was very nervous when he told me, because I said, I told him, I said, why me? I'm just a girl. He's like, I said, I'm just a girl. And he said, the mouse is to tell the world about the coming revolution. And he gave me my mission. And he said, there's nobody coming. We can think, he said, all the stuff we see in the news, all the posts, people, the white hats, this and that. He said, no one is coming. It's you guys. He said, there is nobody else. So it's a very important mission. So I constantly try to tell people about it, because that's what I was told to do. That's my mission, is to give a mission of information. That's as much as far as I can go. And I have to stay true to that. And I try to give information no matter what, no matter how I'm feeling that day, no matter what's happened, if there's a lot of things going on in the community, I still try to give information to people.
So Olivia, what is the difference between a faker and someone that's really had an authentic experience of the programs?
It's so hard to say. It's so hard to say. And I really try to I honestly just try to let people say, their idea of what they think happened to them. Have I experienced people that I feel probably are taking, information from other places and kind of adopting it? Have I experienced that I've met some of those people? Possibly. But I didn't really say anything to them. I feel like it might be their thing to figure out, because, somebody might think that of me. But I have met people like that aren't really, in my personal opinion, they probably have not experienced what they're explaining. So, I try to keep my information so tight and consistent, because I know that there are going to be people questioning, did I really go through this? Did I really experience this? Did this happen? And a lot of, to me, a big part of my story can be validated because of my father, because of his military records and some of those other records that happened, to him early on with his trafficking and everything. So I feel like part of my story has a big validation piece that I can definitely prove. And also I consider, my sessions that I do, my hypnotic trance sessions, I consider that evidence, because I record them all. And this was crazy though. I thought that I was keeping all my sessions safe by keeping it on my phone with me, and my phone got hacked, and the only thing that was missing was those sessions. And I was like, oh, that was like a huge, I almost took me to my knees to lose something so big, because that's my evidence, so I was able to I had, somebody else had copies of it that helped me. And I make sure that I keep everything on all these different places now. And I even go old school, like flash drives, everything, because I can't lose that, because that's exactly what happened to me. And it was the minute I said it, I want to keep that. And I want to have that for as long as I can.
That resonates, because I had an issue just this week where a few episodes that I just finished editing were just taken, a folder was gone, like just removed from my computer, just like that. I'm like, really?
It's just, how can only thing that's missing from my phone would be that, everything else was there in the same places, everything. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense that they would try that. But yeah, that really stressed me out, because I can't lose my evidence, because of that reason, because, people do want some type of proof, they have a hard time believing this. And that's why when I say the information, I try to make it similar every time. So I'm not, changing it. And obviously, because I've done so many podcasts, there's been, I don't know, countless numbers of people who say that I'm lying or that I'm fake or that I'm making it up, that I'm evil, that I'm a Luciferian, an agent. I mean, I've heard everything. Everything. Now I don't even look at the comments anymore. I stopped doing that a long time ago, which has been actually really helpful that I don't look at it, because pretty much there's going to be like a negative comment under each video you do. It's just very difficult not to have that, because I understand. I would like to tell people, I understand that this information is scary. It is. And it should scare people. It should scare people for the fact that the government has been doing this and also been allowing it. So, we should be afraid of this. The people should need to know this. They're going to have to step out of their comfort zone and figure out that there's bad things that are happening in this world. There's bad things that have happened to us as children, throughout our lives, and they can't avoid it or ignore it forever, because by doing that, nothing's going to change. If you're that afraid, then it's never going to change. They're going to keep doing it because you're too afraid to look at it. And I've met tons of people like that. My own family's like that. They would never look at this. They would never be willing to, even listen to this story or be open to it, because out of fear. In my opinion, out of fear. So it's not within my own sphere, my own sphere of, knowledge or whatever. I know that they would be afraid of this. So I've met lots of people like that. And maybe I have been like that in the past. And in a way I was, because I was afraid of myself for my whole life. Just like you were talking about the girl who she was being hysterical, that really resonated with me, because I remember when I had a certain type of altar trying to come through, it did make me hysterical. It did, because I was so terrified of it. And it's called a survival altar. And if the survival altar comes out, not that much else is going to survive, because it's meant to keep you alive. They program you with that because they want to keep you alive during missions and jobs and things like that, because your being safe keeps them safe. If you get in trouble, they could be at risk. So when I was in the programs, and when a lot of other people in the programs, there's not a lot of leeway for you to make mistakes. If they demand perfection and everything, they demand you to listen to the directives exactly and create and implement the outcomes that they want perfectly. There is no measure for failure. From what I remember, I don't remember failing, because that wasn't an option. Because if you did fail, then you wouldn't be alive. They would make sure that you're not alive, and then people that aren't alive. So it's very risky. So they always kept that over your head, always a threat. I always had a threat when I worked for, especially Kruger. They always threatened you. Everything had to be perfect, or you're not going to be around.
Yeah, well, I guess number one, if you can't question it, it's probably a lie. And two, any sane individual, it's their right if they want to question something, right?
Yes.
If they're thinking straight, if they have more than the average limited capacity for thinking. And that's what we want, because it's the questioning that's more powerful than anything else. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything.
Yes. And you can't. If they want to know it, they'll figure it, they'll know it. They'll take it for themselves and do what they want with the information. I can never force anybody to believe me. I don't think that's ever happened. I just can't.
Yeah. And thirdly, there's a lot of stuff out there that people just kind of force it down your throat. I made an episode on the bite method by Dr. Stephen Hassan. Mm-hmm. And, I outlined that. And I think that might have also played a factor in me getting slapped as well, because I was just reading the list of criteria for being able to tell how this is being implemented on you. And I think that might have gotten me in trouble, because they don't want people to really find that information. They'll leave it on the internet, but they're assuming that people are going to be dumb enough to not go look for this, And
yeah, I was going to say the handlers actually said that. They said that, a few years ago, we weren't a threat because everybody made fun of us and they thought that we were, crazy.
Wearing crazies.
Yeah, they thought that's what the handler said. They said a few years ago, this wouldn't even have mattered. We wouldn't need Project Oblivion because you guys look like a bunch of psychos. Everybody thought you were crazy and that you were playing games. You were LARPers, making up, characters from, movies and video games and stuff like that. They said that's what we were. And they said now we have made so much headway that we're more believable. Some of the survivors coming out speaking are more rational, and people are starting to pay a lot more attention based on people and who's presenting the information and things like that. If you present it a certain way. So that's what they consider dangerous, is that, a lot of us have changed the community and how the community is responding to some of this information, especially some of the dangerous information like MKUltra. And that's what the handler said. That's really some of the most dangerous information out there is MKUltra in my lab military abductions. That's going to be, and some of the off-planet programs too. They don't even want people to entertain it because, they feel like people will start to grasp onto that and, kind of push that out into the world and make it more solid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've also made posts about the keyboard warriors that basically control everything, and I think that a lot of that's what's going on too. When you were talking about the comments, it's them sending these sleepers or whatever, or these stupid ass people to just comment on stuff.
I think they do, because when I went to see my own handler, he's just a guy in a chair sitting at a keyboard typing away. And I honestly feel like even though I know we have to remember that everybody is an individual. We've all had, individual experiences, beliefs, perspectives, everything. So we're all going to be different and, different things trigger us. But I really feel like Oblivion has a hand in some of the infighting and some of the community issues, things like that. I really do. Like all they would have to do is send you one, get on the computer, your handler, send you a meme of something that triggers you immediately. And then somebody else says something about, and there's a huge argument. It's insane how they've been able to weaponize like people's opinions, people's belief systems and perspectives. I've seen it myself. What happens. And it's just so bad now. It's just so, and it's like becoming so irrational in my opinion, that they're not thinking that, they're pushing this on us. We're falling right into their hands, into the trap of Oblivion.
I got to ask you this question then, based on your information, what do you think is the role of digital ID?
My initial feeling from it is not good. I don't think it's going to be good. I just don't. I just getting my initial impression of it. Something is telling me like hands off is not heaven. They gave me that message. I don't know what that means. We have to take that with whatever you mean. Hands off is not heaven. In my way, I'm interpreting as just by letting things go and letting other people give us these, different technologies and things. Is that going to be better, or are we going to harm ourselves by seeking that? Actually, the Zetas told me that. They told me that because they did the same thing back in their past. They said they sought perfection in their physical form and then in their mental form. So, and in that pursuit, they said they lost their heart center because they were in pursuit of perfection with technology and they lost it. So it's gone. And they warn us, the more you pursue that with different technologies, the more advanced you become, the more away from your heart center. And actually they say that their race is dying. So they've kind of created this hybrid program. So because they're trying to save themselves and it doesn't always work out. And they actually have like, a group of hybrids, they've created a race of human Zeta hybrids, and they call them Oblinis. And actually Oblinis in their language means sweet soul. So these beings are supposed to be like the saviors of their world. And they just kind of warned me when I was talking to them about how this could impact our Earth here, because we're kind of going down the same path.
Yeah, all of this stuff is just mind-blowing. I don't think that any number of marches or protests or whatever you want to do against digital ID is going to stop it from going into place, strictly because, we're here and we're running our mouth right now, and they got to stop that. It's become too frightening for them at this point. We're getting too much traction and we just find a way around things every time, so.
I think so. I don't know why I feel like, yeah, we're in a rough spot, but we feel like we have that strength to recover from anything. I feel like our community can recover. And I know that one of the things that are going to come hard at people, the whoever's in this community, they're going to be making a lot of new illnesses. And I know there was some that were like affecting like chambers of the heart. And you know what they told me is that they do it by your cell phone. Isn't that weird that the cell phone is the killer? Like they have ways to make you ill by your cell phone. And it was so weird. I remember I saw something and it was hard to interpret the vision of something to do with your fingerprint. And I know a lot of people, but now a lot of it is like Face ID. So I'm not sure if had they tracked us by our fingerprint or how they did it, but it was with the phone. And they told me that they said this specific phrase, and it was really weird for them to say that. You know, they said that, you know, that phrase that where the biggest trick against humanity was, you know, saying that the devil didn't exist or something like that. You know, that phrase. But what they said, actually, the biggest trick against humanity is making us addicted to our phones, because it's what's going to kill us, is what they told me anyways.
It's really weird that you've said that, because I've been thinking about putting my phone inside of a Faraday bag, and I was getting sick a lot. And I don't ever get sick. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who goes for 15 years without going to the doctor. And it's just because I am very careful about what I put in my body and stuff like that, and what I put in my mind too, along with the geoengineering, because, you know, I'm in the Caribbean. So what they got going on right now is the whole psyop with Venezuela and the US military. And ever since those ships showed up in the Caribbean, they've been ramping it up with the geoengineering, the spraying like crazy, nonstop. There's no break in between the spraying schedule. So the sky is completely grayed out every day, all night for weeks. And that started to make me sick. But I started to realize, okay, if I'm breathing in these nanoparticulates, that's one thing. So foreign chemicals are coming into my body. I make sure I sweat every day, make sure I eat super clean, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've been holding it off. But clearly, with the way that I was feeling, like my neck was hurting and I was feeling dizzy and things like that. And I'm like, okay, that seems a little bit more like an electromagnetic frequency thing. So what I actually did was I reset my phone and I took the biometrics off my phone, because when you get a Samsung phone, I have one of the newest Samsung phones that's out there. And before you can even set your phone up, you have to give them your fingerprint in order to be able to get access to the phone. So that's how they got me.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I just thought of that. I'm like, how are they getting fingerprints if it's Face ID? That's right.
So I was able to actually delete any record of the fingerprint off the phone. And as soon as I did that, a couple of days later, I started to feel better. And I've been staying away from my phone as much as possible too. And I've noticed that I've gotten a lot better just by staying away from it. As much.
It's so interesting what they're going to give us, like fibromyalgia, blood clots, nervous disorders. Your skin's going to be affected. You know, the bone density is going to be affected. Frequencies, somehow they're affecting our brain waves. Like they pretty much said that they're going to make us rot from the inside out. And you know, I believe them. I believe them when they said that, because you know I've experienced the physical health targeting for a long time. You know, I was one of those people that, you know, almost had a stroke when I was really young, which is it's really not possible. So it reminded me of that, and that a lot of the chemicals they gave us throughout the programs, and, you know, even as we're young, like a lot of LSD, things like that. And we don't know how it affects you as an adult, but there's many of us that are having like a lot of liver issues. Your liver can't handle all those chemicals, you know, in your body, and we start to deteriorate. So what I always say is, like, they don't lie. They tell me, you know, pretty much you're good. We're doing all this stuff. You know, I really don't take them as liars. You know, I don't like to hear what they're saying, but sometimes they speak the truth about what they're going to do to us.
Yeah, it's really strange stuff. There's nothing you can do really except for take small measures. Like the best advice I would give to anybody listening right now is take your biometrics off your phone, go without a PIN code, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's you know, why do you need to lock your phone? What are you hiding, and from who? You know? Yeah,
it's going to be so hard to, because I feel like they really did make a profound statement when they said the biggest trick against humanity is making you addicted to that phone. Nobody can live without it anymore. You just can't. No, you don't see anybody just walking around without a phone. It's just, I mean, they said it, and they're using different software programs to track the community networking, which I thought was interesting to see. I found that they're using something called Spider Tracks, and it's some kind of software, and they just track everybody, who you're talking to, who that person talks to, everybody that, like, if one person talks and it branches out to all these different other people, they know exactly who's talked to who. They know who to target. They know who's been in the network. They know, because I keep talking about it. We're building our network here. This is our network. It's just us. We're the ones talking about this. We're the ones getting this information. We're the white hats. There's nobody else. And they know that. So they're tracking everybody. They know exactly who to target and who's said what and who's talked to who might even have just like an idea that they might be affected. It's just the amount of work they put into this, and they've done it for a really long time in terms of, how they monitor their own assets. So they've just taken that and, brought it into Project Oblivion.
That is one of the many reasons why I've never wanted to continue doing like live streams and stuff like that, because a lot of people can come into that community and just infiltrate. And you see a lot of bots and stuff on those shows that do that kind of stuff. Or you get a lot of people that they're trying to stir up conflict in the podcasting community. I just spoke about this with another.
I've seen that. I've seen people conspiring and asking other people to attack podcasters, and I just refuse. I said, I'm not attacking no for what? I'm not doing that. Get out of here with that. That's crazy. I was like, I've seen it. It's real. You're right in your thinking. They are doing it, and I'm not saying I don't blame somebody, but I know Project Oblivion has a hand in it, and kind of. I'm not saying they're responsible, because, we all have our own mind, but they give you a little push. And if you're a vulnerable person, you might, go that way very quickly. You might just kind of go off the deep end or whatever. I've seen it though. They are conspiring to attack podcasters.
Yeah, my theory on that too is they have a lot of people who are unconsciously doing it. They're probably getting in these people's heads some other way, and they're going between.
I feel that too. Exactly. Because I've seen it. I've seen people get triggered. And then once they're triggered over something that's unrelated to this particular podcaster, but then attack them for it and ask other people to attack. And that's just crazy to me. I'm not going to attack somebody for their content. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're finding ways to pit podcasters against each other by sending these narcs into communities to basically unconsciously get to know another person. And then they go and spread rumors and be like, this person said this, or this person's doing this.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen
it's out of control. It's out of control. And, and for myself, I've seen it, and it's happened to me too. I've seen, people behind the scenes that I thought I could trust. And then as soon as I say something they don't like, they start rumors. And, rumors are very powerful. They start rumors with other people that I know that I'm an agent, that I've been compromised, and it's very hurtful. And it's very, because, some of us work so hard to get information out. And then one day somebody feels like they're angry at something, and then they make a rumor that you're an agent for whatever reason. And it's very harmful to the community for people to continue to do that. And it doesn't matter how many times I try to talk to people about it. It just keeps happening. And I don't know if it can be stopped at this point, because it's kind of gotten out of control with it.
I've seen that happen a few times. People have tried it on me, but my best defense against that is because I just don't care. So I've said, okay, yeah, well, if somebody said that, they're probably right. And then I just move on. And then eventually it takes care of itself.
Yeah. Oh, guess I am an agent. Yeah. If you think so, where's my agent money? If that's what's happening. So I've seen it myself, and it's very sad to see, but I know we're all humans, and we still have human emotion, but I just want to remind people that humanity is our strength. They're coming after all of us, and we have to kind of figure out how to recover from, infighting and some kind of traumas that we're having in our own community. We have to figure it out, because there's no one coming to save us. I know that for a fact. Nobody's coming here to save us, no matter what we've been told. And no matter what you see on Twitter, I don't feel like anybody's coming to save us. And that's not what I was told. And that's not what I've seen. So I feel like we need to pick up and pull out our own strength and figure out how to move forward. And what I was told by that general is that one of our major jobs is to protect children and to ensure that these children are here for the future, because they're the ones that are going to take the reins of this. We're kind of going to, all of us here now are going to be a little bit older by then. So the children are the one that are really going to take over this revolution from us. And we're kind of like setting the stage for them. So a lot of this work is for them.
So what other critical information could you share about Project Oblivion?
Just that it's the major targeting. I want people to remember, if you're one day feeling like you're angry and you want to start a rumor, remember about Project Oblivion. And that's what they want. That's what they want, is for us to fight each other and to betray each other, because that betrayal is so destructive to the community. It's almost like a stain every time we have that. And it's a victory for Project Oblivion. Every time we start to infight and do these kinds of things, it's going to be very difficult, from what I know, from now on. And even my own father, who passed a long time ago, he came through and told me that what I've chosen to do is a hard road. He told me nothing will be easy from now on. And it was my choice to either pick this up or to, just try to fall back and be a normal person. He said I had to make that choice, and I made the choice to, still give information to people. But he even told me nothing will be easy from now on. Nothing. It's always going to be difficult. I mean, in our daily lives, we can, try to be as normal as possible. But once you've been awakened, and once you've had that call, you need to, stay true to what your mission is. And my mission is information.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great talking with you again.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. Just tell us again where we can find you.
Yeah, I don't know how long I'll be on socials because I keep getting banned, but just TikTok, Facebook, Substack is where I put a lot of my weekly writings that I do. That's kind of like my favorite. It's like a healing process for me. So I do like to do a lot of writing. So that's definitely somewhere people can find me.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to the Boundless Authenticity podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness.
At the very least, people need to understand that the United States builds bunkers, which are basically cities underground, every 3 months.
Basically, when you dream, you tap into your subconscious. It is your nocturnal intuition, your creativity and imagination, unchained from conscious reason, ego and logic.
They're biologically alive, but they have no soul. They have AI consciousness. They can alter your conscious of the brain to get the brain.
We live in a multidimensional reality. Whether it comes through esoteric information in the spiritual realms, or the UFO people, experiencers, or mainstream through quantum physics and through mainstream science now realizing that parallel dimensions probably exist.
We're all spiritual beings. We're all having these human experiences. We've heard that phrase over and over and over. But what does that really mean?
All of the questions of life, we have these answers inside of our souls.
We're ultimately studying the nature of what it is to be human, good and evil, our psychology, how we think, our health. That's why I love Bruce Lee's great quote, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge.
The Boundless Authenticity podcast.